Welcome back, everyone, to the Flyin podcast. I want to thank all of our listeners from last week's episode. You guys made our last pod the most listened / watched that we've ever had. So thanks again for listening, following us. I think we've been rolling out some good content for you guys, whether on the podcast and mainly on Twitter as well, keeping up with some of the crazy news in the off season. Tonight we got Sam and OG Zach. He's back. He's alive. But Zach, you feeling all right?
Yeah, I'm feeling much better. I'm glad I could finally recover from the flu that's been going around. So glad to be back and talking soccer.
Yeah, I think it's great to have Zach back, obviously. But yeah, he was down and out. I think he was right. I mean, everybody's kind of gotten that whiff of the flu, right? This kind of change of season, especially after the groundhog was like, "Hey, spring's coming." So I think they may have something to do with it.
I
It's in the air.
I mean, it was my 30th, so I mean, as soon as you hit 30, I guess things just go downhill, right?
Everything goes downhill from there. But at least FC Cincinnati had some good this week, boys. You like that transition? Yeah, I think we had some awesome news. This podcast and this episode, we're going to talk a little bit about Pavel Bucha officially signing, with FC Cincinnati. We'll go a little bit more into Alvaro Barreal news. We'll cover a little bit of the Philly preseason match that we had with a nice win, if you want to call it a preseason win there. And then in the second part of the episode, we're going to chat a little bit about the week ahead. There's a lot of new stuff coming up, a little bit of interest possibly in some players down in Peru, a U.S. Open Cup update, and then we're going to just give us our overall preseason impressions so far. I think we're down to the last preseason game this coming week. So we'll give our thoughts on that. But at least first off, like I said, Pavel Bucha finally signing with FC Cincinnati. Again, a 25-year-old midfielder. We're going to call him a number 8, but for FC Cincinnati this year, he's going to be wearing the number 20. Guys previously worn by Jeff Cameron. I thought that was kind of interesting. He was the last one to wear the number 20. But he signed through 2026 with a club option for 2027. I'm really pumped about this guy. Sam, what are your initial thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, initial thoughts, $1.6 million transfer fee. Like you had mentioned, I'm just happy to see that he signed through 2026. Hopefully decides to stay for that, 2027 season. But yeah, I think to your point, all signs really point to him being a really great all around player. I know you had texted us in the chat earlier this week of, there were front office people that were meeting with, other people within, the Bailey to coordinate some things. And the front office was telling those sources that they're really going to like Bucha. We are really going to like Bucha a lot, the way he plays. There's also talk of him being able to take pressure off the ball for Lucho as well, to kind of help with the hold up play, similar to obviously what Vasquez did for us last season, to kind of be that guy to hold up play and then start out the attacking. So anybody that can give that, break to Lucho is an absolute godsend, right? Because Lucho, obviously on the ball, he's ridiculous, but he gets tired. And so if we can have Lucho for all 90 minutes instead of having to sub out, around the 80th minute would be absolutely crucial.
I mean, yeah, Sam, I think you're spot on with that whole assessment there at the end. That was my first big, I guess, um, bright spot with him is, Lucho. I mean, he's getting old. Guys becoming an old goat. So, you know, he's at the point where, one small injury will knock him out. And I think Buka is that guy to fill in that role when he is out. I mean, I think just judging from the highlights that I've seen from Buka, I mean, he's all attack. It seems like there wasn't really many highlights of him defending, to be quite honest. But doesn't mean he's not a defender. But I think he's going to have a lot of assists this year, and I think he's going to show it. Just because, I mean, obviously Obi's going to hold his back, but I think that dynamic in the midfield is going to be really, really fun to watch with Buka there.
Yeah, great point. I think this is probably the most balanced we've had in terms of, with Obi and Lucho, with this guy that can go both ways. And Zach, to your point, I don't think there's many defensive highlights that a lot of teams show unless you're like a defensive player. But yeah, Bucha seems to be, a high motor guy, and that's what we really need is a box to box guy. And if he can come in and really provide, like Sam had mentioned too, that's what we need. We need that connection between the midfield and the offense. And where Moreno dropped back a little bit more, but had decent passing towards the end of the year, it got a little bit spotty, especially in the playoffs. I was a little bit worried about some of the passes he was playing. But, if all signs point to Bucha being as intelligent as he is, then think about all the potential we have with him spraying balls out wide or, through balls like we had seen 2 years ago, for some of the guys running through. I think it says a lot that he comes into the team and he's starting the last two games. Obviously a new player takes some time to adapt. It tells me they have some confidence in him. One small note I wanted to make about the preseason game. Carter Chapley, shout out to Carter for this live blog during the game, basically said that Bucha had this long range shot that just knocked this Philly guy over, just drilled him in the face. So, maybe he's got a powerful shot too from outside. That'll be something to watch too. I think we haven't really had a decent, midfielder that can score from long out. And, if he provides that, maybe we don't have to find that perfect ball. I think that was our big thing last year that really kept us back from scoring goals is just we try to get too pretty with it. But if Bucha can actually, score from long range, that would be huge. So speaking on guys that can score from long range, Alvaro Barreal, guys, I mean, he's back. He's in the FCC camp. There was a little bit of a debate whether or not he was going to be back. Then we see this photo of him, on the plane with his brother coming back to the States. Almost like simultaneously, you hear reports from, Argentina as you go into Boca. Their transfer window was about to be closing, and it looked like for a second there he might be tempted to go down there. It sounded like all, signs lead to him wanting to leave at this point, no matter who it is. But the timing for me was just a little weird with him on the flight to America, but then interest from Argentina where he was coming from. I think honestly, he just wants a good opportunity. He wants to move on. It's just, obviously Europe is his top destination. If he goes to Brazil, he gets time there, he makes good money, the club benefits from it. I'm fine with that. I just think from a personal standpoint of Barreal, being a podcast that supports the players and the club, I just don't see him getting much time down in Argentina. There's all this uncertainty. Is he really going to make that next leap from there? Obviously, that's not our worry, but just being a Barreal fan, that's what I'm thinking. And those were my thoughts.
Yeah, I think to kind of go off of that, once again, we had been texting back and forth of like just looking at Twitter. I mean, the negativity that was really just all around Barreal. I want to sit, I just want to apologize to him for that because, it's no like ill will towards the club. I feel like that he has, but FCC fans were a little disgruntled with him. And to your point, the Flyin podcast is a pro team platform, right?
He's
So
currently a player for our team,
exactly. Current player
until
for
he's
our team.
not.
So we're going to support him. But yeah, I think we need to take it easy on Barreal. The guy deserved obviously a move to Europe, which is a higher level of play than the MLS in most cases. And we supported that. We were vocal about that. It didn't happen, but we're happy to have him back because he's the best left wing back in the MLS. I'll say that again. Best left wing back.
We're
100%.
not worthy. In other words, honestly, I mean, yeah, I think Barreal, he deserves all the attention he can get, and he's definitely been getting it. Whether the drama, I mean, is warranted, I mean, talking about him is a big deal, and I think that's hopefully going to play into his hands come summer. Um, I mean, if he's not gone this winter, I mean, I don't think he'll last until next winter, So best get some use out of him while we can.
Yeah, that's exactly it, is like enjoy them while you can. And, again, Sam, like to your point of like, I want what's best for the club. I would love to see what's best for Barreal. I know that, at some point freeing him up opens up so much GAM and so many opportunities for us. But, can they find that replacement for the best wing back, in the MLS that quick to fill that spot? That's where I think we're a little bit pressed. If Orellano can come in and fill that role, great. Then we have somebody there, but we're starting Champions Cup, next week. We need Alvaro, at least at that point, for these early games, really is my thought. So overall, I'm happy he's staying. There's definitely some other options they're exploring. It sounds like maybe in South America, maybe Brazil, if there is a possibility, but he's in training. To me, that shows that he's here, at least until the summer. There are some people online that were, in some ways undervaluing him too. Like we said, a $5 million, and they're like, oh man, they're asking for that much for him. And it's like, look at his market in Europe. They really were just trying to find something right before, the deadline, and they know the player wanted to be moved. So I don't know if they lowballed him like they almost did with Vasquez last year, but I think Albright's smarter than that. So yeah. And so I guess moving on from that, we talk about Orellano. He was spotted playing some team volleyball on the beach. Sam, it kind of gave me some Top Gun vibes. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I mean, guys with their shirts off playing, beach volleyball, it always gives Top Gun vibes, right? Especially just after watching the newest movie. But yeah, I think that was awesome. Awesome reporting, fans to fans. I thought, once again, give a shout out to that guy.
Shout
Just
out
being like,
Sky
hey,
from
yeah,
Nebraska.
shout out Sky. He literally was like, hey, my company's having, a conference literally right on the beach here, which just in itself is pretty cool. But then you get to see FC Cincinnati. I'd forget all about the conference, to be honest with you. Just focus on watching the boys play. Maybe they were taking bets on the side there. Maybe playing around a little bit. But yeah, cool to see.
Can we just talk about FCC media during that whole like beach vibe thing? Like
That's kind of funny.
that was pretty awesome. I'm gotta admit.
Yeah, I shout out to the FC like media team, for putting that. I think they had a couple bicycle kicks on the beach there that we saw too. Some of the younger guys were doing that. Yeah, it was cool to see, and just kind of the chemistry they're building. But yeah, like talk about like most random ways to figure out like if the trialist, Orellano is with the team, but you see him and Barreal, finally back together. I think that's the cool part. Hopefully that builds some cool chemistry. Maybe takes him under his wing. Like I said last episode, he's the heir to his throne. He's gonna slide into that spot, so he's gonna nurture him that way. But as soon as we say that, and then we see today on Instagram, Zach, I don't know if you saw this. There's a barber down in Rio de Janeiro in Brazil who had posted on his Instagram that he was cutting Orellano's hair. Now the question is like, was that from before he went down to Florida, or is this something that the club said, hey, yeah, man, go ahead and go back and get that nice fresh haircut at home real quick?
Just
Yeah.
for a haircut going back to Brazil.
I wonder if it's like a matter of getting paperwork together or something. I mean, clearly this
Fair.
guy was in camp this past weekend with us. I mean, it was clear as day. Again, shout out Sky had even like posted a video and said, hey man, if this helps, here you go. And you could clearly see it was this guy with tats all over his arm and his neck, and he's kicking with his left foot. I mean, who else could it have been?
Yeah, I think to your point, it also may have been taken, earlier this week or earlier last week, whatever. Don't know, but it was posted today, right? So that's what makes us a little curious on that. I did tweet out, it's pretty baller move, if I'm being completely honest. Just going, regardless if he needs paperwork or not, just to be like, hey, while I'm down here, to get paperwork, I'm just gonna get a haircut by, my guy, my barber. Who knows? Maybe we'll see even a fly out. Maybe the barber comes to FC Cincinnati. Maybe TQL.
Barber to
Hooks everybody
FCC.
up. Yeah.
Trialist barber. Yeah, I think it sounds like all things pointed to Orellano actually being in the preseason game, guys. So we had this game on Friday against Philly, and what a heated game it was. FC Cincinnati ended up winning 4-3. We did a 90-minute period, so like a real game, and then there was another 45 minutes for some of the younger guys and some subs. I'll kind of shout out, our lineup in that first half was Bupenza, Corey Baird, Acosta, Bucha, Obi. I'm going to say trialist here. Murphy, Miazga, Robinson, Kubo, and Celentano. I was following along by like maybe 20 or 30 minutes into this live blog, and we're down 0-3 like that. Like, before nothing happens. And I'm thinking, oh, this defense is in shambles already. Sam, any initial thoughts from that point?
Yeah, I mean, from the whole game perspective, everybody was kind of saying that it was one of the best preseason games they've ever seen. I'm not going to go like, oh my gosh, greatest preseason game of all time. But I mean, from that perspective, 4-3 final, FC comes back from 0-3, like that's pretty solid. And they were obviously the feel was more of a real regular season feel than an actual preseason game, which is exactly what you want during these final preseason games. But yeah, being down 0-3, my biggest takeaway seeing that was just resiliency. FC being able to come back and string goals, momentum together is definitely what you want to see during the preseason. I mean, obviously, they put themselves in a situation where they were down big, but I think I'd rather see that in the preseason than in the regular season. And I think this builds character, especially as a team together, right? It builds chemistry, even in the preseason or even like playing video games, or I'm sure even like beach volleyball, the guys were building chemistry. If they were down and came back, it always builds something special.
Yeah, absolutely, Sam. The down 0-3, I think it was like within 15 minutes. Um, and you always wonder like what is the like strategy in preseason, right? Like what is Pat Noonan trying to do? Is he trying to play people in positions that he's just trying out like all willy-nilly, or is he actually trying to play the best lineup as he possibly can? I mean, I guess based off this that we've seen, I mean, it looks like it's pretty close to one of our starting lineups. But really, I think a couple call outs. I mean, the integration of it looks like four new players and then Kubo in a new position, right? Like, you got Baird, you got Bucha, trialist, and Robinson. And then Kubo, obviously, like I said, I mean, where's Kubo playing? Is he playing a wing back, or is he playing forward or striker even? Heck. Um, and you don't know what the formation is going to be either. So I really hope that people come out of this. I mean, being able to integrate those players and come out with a 4-3 win after that is insane, I feel like, especially against a Philly team. Being able to have that comeback like that with half your squad pretty much new, that's pretty impressive, in my opinion.
I mean, how's your team going to respond to having, four starters essentially being thrown to the side, and you put these new guys in who barely played together against a Philly team that's been together for what, 4 or 5 years now? And you go down 0-3, like you guys said, and they come back like that, I mean, what does this show you? If you break down where we were 0-3 down, and I hate to get like so nitty gritty on the preseason games, but I think this is important. Look who starts the charge back. Lucha plays a beautiful ball to Baird, and he just beautifully volleys it, so gets his confidence up. But Acosta, then you have Bupenza, who's on a tear this preseason. So he, heads the ball past, actually takes, Andre Blake one-on-one, and then just outrageously backheels the ball into the net. If you guys haven't seen this, go watch the video. Just the most outrageous goal I've seen in a preseason game, even like any real soccer game, to be honest. But that leads to, Jose Martinez throwing the ball. So it brings this tension into it. Then we get, Acosta scoring. So again, Lucho. And then, Kubo with the cross to Bupenza to take the lead. So what I really saw out of this, and what really saved us last year, is the MVP of the MLS, Lucho Acosta. I think having him in there brings all these guys together and makes us a better team. I mean, we've been down before and we had come back. So I really like to see, good point, Zach, is like, how are we going to integrate? And again, with new guys, how are we going to respond to adversity? And you don't always get that in preseason. And we were able to see that, which was awesome. Second, I guess, period of things. So the second 45 minutes, we see this new lineup, and I'm not going to even really kind of shout it out other than it's a lot of the same guys that we had seen in the last few games of preseason. I think we see Sergio Santos goes down with an injury. Shocker, right? So depth at striker, questionable, maybe. But we'll see if that's anything long term. It didn't look like he was playing beach volleyball the next day, is kind of what I took away from that. We'll see what kind of knock he has going into the season. Again, we have so many competitions. We need healthy strikers. But Zach, you're right. Kubo can play striker too if needed, I guess. But yeah, that's really what I took away. And you guys made great points on that, is just resiliency, being able to fight back. And then the cohesion, really finding, I think, you have solid center backs, but the wing back play, early on, if we go down 0-3 in every game because our outside backs aren't consistent, I mean, that's going to change things. So Orellano, if he truly was playing left back, in Barreal's position in this game, and Kubo's your right back, you really need these guys to build chemistry with your center backs and create a level of trust, especially if you have Bucha, who is more attack minded in midfield. So Obi's got to be a little bit more on the defensive side in the midfield, more than he even, has been in prior years. I know last year we even kind of pushed for him to, move forward a little bit more, but I think he's got to stay back and pick his spots if he's going to do that this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, once again, to your point, building that chemistry in the back line, especially going down 0-3, and then being able to shift change, right? So what kind of pressure does that put on the second shift change, right? Being able to hold up that lead, or what kind of takeaways would you get from that? Because I think that stands out as well, as Pat Noonan wants to see that second shift change be able to hold a lead, right? Because the first I guess names on the team sheet, right? They're gonna lead the comeback. To your point, Lucho Acosta MVP. Who's gonna be the MVP of that second shift?
Man, I mean, yeah, you guys haven't. I couldn't say it any better. I think we yeah. I mean, honestly, I'm done. I don't have anything else.
Yeah, I think one last point I'd like to make in, 3 games, I think I had put it in our agenda here at some point, but was just to see, the tally of goals for Bupenza, in 3 games, he's got 5 goals. And I think Acosta has now got like 6 assists or something like that in 3 games too, and a goal as well. So, just unbelievable production from those guys who, again, were so uncertain last year on how their chemistry would work out carrying over to this year. We mentioned it last podcast, but it's even more shown in this game. Just that Bupenza's on a tear. So, I mentioned it last episode, and I said, Extra Time Radio did the 12.5, over under on the goals for MLS season. I'm going to take the over after this preseason game. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah, I mean, 7 goals in a preseason match is, I mean, pretty staggering there. So, I mean, let the bets fly, right?
Yeah,
Gonna
for
be a
sure.
gonna be a lot.
Yeah, I think he's going to score a lot. He's got to stay healthy because our depth is the question mark. So, Sam, why don't you take us into a break here? I know you have a good trivia question for us.
Yeah, decent trivia of the week here. Boys, I'm gonna hit you with a Bucha trivia of the week, due to his signing. But how many players from the Czech Republic have played in the MLS, not including Bucha? Keyword is played.
I'm going to go with 3 Czech Republic players. You're talking about Czech international players, I would imagine.
Yes.
Czech like nationality, but haven't, they don't have to play for their national team.
No. Yeah.
Okay. Just clarifying, but I'm going to go with 3.
Zach.
I'm gonna go with 5.
5. Okay. We're locking in 3 and 5, and we'll get you back on the end of this break.
So Agility is a technology-driven soccer training facility. So we offer 6 facets of training. That would be Tech Touch with ball launchers that work on your first touch, the TSZ, which is the ESA equipment and working on decision making. We also have a circuit. Circuit training would be taking the ESA equipment to the next level. It's kind of like a soccer obstacle course. Then we offer neuroscience training with our reflection tools, working on processing things a little bit faster, hand-eye coordination and such. We offer skills classes, which is your typical core skills training. Lots of people still enjoy that, so we work on a lot of attacking 1v1 skills. And then we also offer athlete development. So our athletes come here and they work on speed, agility, quickness, explosive movements, really just learning how to move and function a little bit better as an athlete.
Welcome back, everyone. We had chatted in this first part of the podcast about preseason game against Philly. We talked a little bit about Pavel Bucha, Alvaro Barreal being back. Guys, we're going to say goodbye now to Junior Moreno. He officially departed to go to Al Hazem in Saudi Arabia. 30-year-old guy, with a solid history for FC Cincinnati, true professional, represented our club in the right way. Wanted to just say thanks to Junior because, honestly, he was such a great player for us. Kind of hit above his belt is, really the best way I would describe him, but, for his age and making hopefully some decent money over there, hopefully in a good opportunity. His team is at the bottom of the Saudi Arabian league right now. So hopefully he can lead a comeback, against the Giants over there. But, any initial thoughts from you guys? Sam, I'll start with you on Junior Moreno departing.
Yeah, I would say one of, if not the most underrated player of FC Cincinnati's starting 11 last year. I mean, the guy was crucial in the midfield. You've got Obi, you've got Acosta, you've got, Kubo, different guys, Angulo that would play in the middle. But Moreno, he brought consistency for the most part in the middle of the park there. And one thing I will always remember him for is he scored the game-winning goal against the Columbus Crew at TQL Stadium. Hell is real. That is something that will forever be remembered in FC Cincinnati lore. I think, once again, like I said, just a great guy. To Ryan's point, just really going to miss his chemistry, right, with the guys. Just Lucho had great chemistry with him. What a goal he had in Atlanta, right? Just flicking the ball up for Lucho to hit it one time. Like that's a great goal as well. There's a lot of good fun moments for Moreno, but another big thing for me was that stash. That stash. Come on now.
Did he rock that just at the end of the year? I think it was the playoffs,
Oh
maybe.
yeah. Oh yeah. Bleach blonde hair with the stash.
Oh,
yeah.
God, that was hideous.
Ryan did a whole segment on it.
I did a whole
He
segment
did.
on his stash. I did.
Did. Oh,
Yeah.
man. Yeah, honestly, Moreno, I mean, yeah, I mean, towards the end there, I think there was a few times where Ryan was like you don't notice when he's playing, but when he messes up, you really notice because things just fall apart, it seems like. So really, I mean, yeah, Sam, he was a hidden gem. One of those quiet soldiers, just, putting in a hard shift. Didn't always seem to play his hardest. I mean, he came out with an injury, I think, towards the end, and I think when he came back, he kind of fell by the wayside a little, but then he picked it back up in playoffs a bit. But no, yeah, it was a great season with him, and wish him all the best of luck, really.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think 2 solid years from Junior. Probably he would say, I would imagine his highlight of his career, to be honest with you, and the way that we treated him here, just the chemistry, like we're saying, with the guys as well. But yeah, in terms of like his loss, I think if you think about a Junior Moreno, even in the position probably that they offered him was, fringe starter, maybe some sub appearances, but you're going to miss a lot of, again, the chemistry, his passing, and then some of his defensive prowess as well. Because in some points, if you see Obi all over the field, well, Moreno stays home a little bit more too. So I'm looking at Bucha for that, a little bit too, to say, hey, Obi likes to go out and do his thing. You might need to cover him a little bit in those spots. So something to look forward, for this season in that sense. But guys, the tally now, from last year's team, I believe is up to 6. So we had Vasquez depart, Arias, Mascara, Moreno, possibly Gaddis? Question mark. I think that's like an open invitation. Like he might like show up on the sideline as like Pat's assistant or something. That would be dope. I think that would be really cool to see, Gaddis over there just telling him what to do. But
Team
and then
chaplain.
Baji. Yeah. And then Baji was the last one. So 6 of them. Real quickly, like in a breakdown of just those guys, just to kind of update you guys real quick too, is Vasquez is back in Cincinnati. He's going to be delivering his baby here in the next like week or two. So he got dismissed from Monterey. Arias is now finally training down in Brazil. Mascara, shout out Yerson Mascara, Arson. 90 minutes for Villarreal in their last game. He started, played a full game. Sounded like he did really well. They tied 1-1. So shout out to him. He had a good match. And then it'll be interesting to see, like you said, Moreno and Sadi Gaddis. I think he's going to be a fringe coach and player, is my opinion on that one. He'll fill in if we need him. And then Baji actually played against Galatasaray last week in a cool cup competition. They lost 4-2, but good for him to get some minutes over there too. We're happy for him. But yeah, I mean, 6 guys that, really contributed last year for our Shield winning team. We're going to miss them, but I feel like, we'll go, I guess, later on into impressions so far in the preseason, how we've kind of stopgap these, I would say holes in some ways in the roster. So stay tuned for that part here in a little bit. But the week ahead, guys, we have another preseason game against New England. We won 2-0 in the last one. Interested to see if there's tensions, built over from playing each other more recently. Is it still tensions brought over from a Philly game? FC was used to that style. How do we go into this game? This is our last test before, Cavalier FC. So I think Pat personally rolls out a starting 11. We're going to chat about this in the next one, but I think he goes all, starting lineup forward in this last preseason game personally.
Yeah, I mean, I want to mention too the last time we saw them play the preseason game against New England, that was the first time we saw the Boup Lucho connection really on the center stage, right? Couple of the clips where Lucho was just putting it right on Boupenza's foot. It was also the first time that we saw Miazga, Murphy, and Robinson all play together. So how have they grown the past 2 games since they first played? 1-2 games, to see, how much chemistry that they've built in the back there. It'll be interesting, but I agree with Ryan. I think look for more first teamers to get their fitness right and their play together to really hone in for this Champions Cup run as we start off, the first game.
I mean, yeah, I kind of touch on it later, a little bit later. Just the fact that we have this last preseason match, and then we go straight into a Champions Cup match. There's no normal season matches between now and then, so we really got to go with all out on this cup match. So I think, yeah, Pat Noonan's going to have to put his top 11, hopefully for the full 90. Do subs like a real match. That's what my hope would be, and or what I would expect him to do. But yeah, I think with and it kind of rubs me a little bit, just the fact that we don't get more variety within the preseason. I wish they did play more teams than just the same 2 or whatever.
Zach,
Obviously,
can I pause you on that thought real quick?
Yeah, sure.
Does your opinion of like Inter Miami going, to Japan and Sergio Busquets getting his ankle destroyed change your perspective on playing, all these different teams potentially in a preseason?
Well, no, I mean, I'm saying play them all in the same, like play them all in Clearwater, but don't travel
Don't
to
play the
Vegas.
same team again.
Yeah, exactly.
I would hope it would be similar to, how Major League Baseball does spring training, right? There's an Arizona league and then there's a Florida league. And then you play who's ever in that. Obviously, not to the extent of games, but at least, to get a good variety, like Zach said, to me personally, once again, to shout out what I said in previous podcasts, I was really, really excited to see that we were playing Austin FC. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, that's a good point because we don't really get to see them. Last time we saw them, we got smacked by them, so that was nice that we were able to play them again in a different light. But I don't know if you guys saw this too. I wanted to just briefly shout it out. Is like last night during the Super Bowl, there's all this conflict going on about Columbus Crew against Toronto, like a preseason game where Toronto did not want to release the score because Columbus beat them 4-2, and it's like, really? Like, you're not going to report the score at all? I mean, I'm very thankful for the fact that we at least have a live blog. At least we get some sort of insight. At least we get goal videos. There's some teams that have been able to watch every single preseason game for their team. Imagine being Toronto and it's like you don't even get to find out your score. And then I think Tom Bogert actually, finds it out through his sources and just goes off against, all these other people that are like, saying this stuff. It's a preseason game, and it's like, just release the scores if it's a preseason game. Like, it doesn't matter. It's literally irrelevant. So it's just fascinating. The whole, you have one spectrum of like Inter Miami, and every single game is on, national broadcast, even a world broadcast. And then you have Toronto is like, we don't even want to report the score at all. So it's just wild, man. MLS will do that to you. It's all over the place. That's what I've really learned, Next bit of news we have though coming up this Friday is the kit reveal. I'm pretty pumped just to have that to finally be solidified. Hopefully to finally be able to buy this dang kit because I want to wear it for the first game. But we'll get a sense of what's going on. I think they have an art gallery presentation that they're going to do for, I would imagine, a private group or something like that. But at least during the day, I'm hoping to see it.
Yeah, I was a little curious to see, you said kind of art gallery type style. Do we know if it's going to be in the team store again, or is it just going to be
To
a
be
style?
released that day, you mean? Or
Yeah, because the last year they did it in the team store.
I believe in terms of like the unveiling, like they're going to have a private event that night is what
Yeah.
it sounds like they're going to have. Now, I don't know if that means they're going to release it early on in the morning and then have this event later on to celebrate it. That's what I'm not sure about.
Yeah, I think the anticipation here is obviously it's going to be a cream or white kit, but the amount of artistry that's going to be on it, because the little paint flare that we've seen in everything that FC has done so far obviously is going to have some type of, importance in that. Now, is it going to be subtle? Is it going to be full of it? It's going to be interesting to see, but we did get some pretty cool designs here earlier this week. I do want to shout out that was really cool. Had
Yeah.
what, 20 plus people reply on our tweet on that. Yeah, I thought that was really cool. The designs, I wouldn't be too upset if those were the designs.
I think you said that and everyone took it to heart and was like, that's not it. That's not it. It's like, yeah, but we could dream that they would be.
Yeah.
So to our resident kit master, on the podcast, Zach, I'm gonna term you that because you love all things, kits. What were your thoughts on some of these leaks?
I mean, I'm not against any of the brushstroke ones. I think some of those are pretty sweet. I mean, really, anything that Adidas anything someone else puts out that Adidas doesn't, it's gonna be good, I think. I mean, I feel like Adidas, I'm gonna say it. The last year, I think, is when they started to get better. Um, get better. They're not there yet, but over the next couple of years, I think they're going to start doing more unique. I mean, you got the what was it? Atlanta's was just pretty wild this last year.
Like
You had
graffiti, I think, right?
graffiti one, yeah. I mean, you had. I'm seeing them, but I can't remember what teams they are. But yeah, I mean,
Red Bulls had a pretty graffiti one too.
Mm-hmm.
yeah. But yeah, I think coming coming into this new season, I think I'm excited to have a white kit again. I'm missing a white kit. I need a white kit with orange shorts. If we get something like that combo, I'll be happy.
That would be pretty cool. I at least from what I'm seeing on the jersey on the side, it looks like a blue and orange stripe down. So do they continue that, on the side of the short and then go with an orange pant or orange short, I should say, but it'll be interesting to see. I think I don't even know where I was about to say. Actually, Sam, were you going to say something about it?
No, to transition into, something else that was kind of up on the docket, right? We saw some news in the Twitter sphere that we had talked about last week. We finally got an Open Cup update. Whew. Oh, okay. Like, let's take a deep breath. They're actually talking about, Ryan, to your point, the MLS, US Soccer, they weren't on good terms, right? And so the MLS and US Soccer were meeting to discuss it. Hopefully we'll get a schedule out, because Ryan was last week is very adamant. There's no schedule, and we need to know in order to plan for certain things, not only as a team, but even fans as well.
Yeah, 100% is like the season starts like next week and we still don't know if we're playing this Open Cup competition. Like, come on, guys, get it together. I don't know if the MLS, was dealing with that, and then with the whole referee thing. It sounds like they've reached maybe a temporary agreement with the refs, so at least we'll have refs, for the season.
Temporary refs, nice.
Temporary refs, right? Potentially. But yeah, the Open Cup will be interesting. I mean, who knows how that's going to go? They didn't have, broadcast until I think the day before the games last year, and it ended up being on like YouTube TV, or no, it was YouTube itself. I think it was YouTube. So just fascinating, to be honest, for one of the longest standing, soccer tournaments in obviously the country, but up there in the world too. It's just amazing that they haven't even come to any sort of agreement. They need to figure out that like ASAP.
I'm flabbergasted that they just like leave it to MLS to just and US soccer to just any sort of bargaining agreement or anything like that always is delayed or it's past the deadline or whatnot, and let alone like you said, a 100-year-old tournament that is the oldest running tournament, I think, probably in all US sports. Probably, correct me if I'm wrong.
I think you might be yeah, I would say that's up there with it.
Just the fact that they, why are they doing this? And I wish US soccer would give some sort of response, because I know was it the CEO? I think he mentioned something, and I it's left my brain, but I think he had a conversation with the was it the women's national team or something like that.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I
I
think you're right about that.
I think he mentioned a little bit on that as well. So
Stay tuned for that. I mean, we're all kind of in the dark on that part, but a lot of what's being discussed is, do we allow MLS teams to expand their rosters? Is it going to only be MLS Next Pro type tournament, and then still call it an MLS, involvement? Like, that's not real. You have to have the MLS teams in it to call it that. So stay tuned. We'll hopefully have some answers, maybe even next week. Like I said, we talked about it last week. We got some more answers this week. It's fluid like every single week in the preseason. So the next piece of FC Cincinnati news that I want to just briefly touch on, there's this rumor, out of Peru that we had some scouts at this championship game for Alonzia Lima, I believe. And whether we're looking at this winger, Franco Zanolato, he's a right winger, but plays a little bit of right back as well. There was a report from MLS Multiplex, I believe, that we had some interest along with Inter Miami. I don't know if I want to believe this because this guy doesn't really play too many minutes for them. Maybe it's just again an agent thing because his contract's up at the end of 2024. He seems to kind of be slipping on their rosters. He does have the same agent as Sergio Santos though, so there might be at least some potential interest on that. But Sam, I don't know if I believe this one.
Yeah, I mean, there could always be some validity to it. Maybe people saw, FC Cincinnati and Inter Miami there. Now, do they know specifically who they were there to scout? I mean, that's in question, right? Obviously, we had talked about previously in the podcast, we need a backup striker because now Santos is out, right? So we're down to what, two options at the striker position with Santos out. I'd like to have a little bit more depth than that, especially at a position to where if Bupenza is going to be carrying us up top, where's the drop off? Similar to like I had said last podcast with Lucho in previous years, we don't want a huge drop off from Boup to that second guy. So I mean, hopefully we're looking at a striker down there. It was kind of a classico of sorts down there. I think it was two of the rival teams right in Peru. So I mean, high stakes game as well. But yeah, I don't know how much validity there is to it, but I'm interested to see if there is any.
Rumors are fun in the preseason until, again, you just get into this wild world of, is it real? Is it not? There might be some interest. We were there, we were scouting people. But like who, like Sam said, is like the big question. And I think for a big money move, to the US for a striker, it didn't seem like either team really provided any of that. For Inter Miami to be looking at a right back too, or a right winger, if you want to call him that, they have Lionel Messi. I don't think they need this guy from Peru. So who knows where this is all coming from? It's just fascinating. Again, it's just where these rumors extend from. But guys, I want to ask your preseason impressions so far. Like I said, we've had 3 games. From my tally, we've had 2 wins and a draw. I think pretty solid overall from what we've seen of the team in the limited time that we've been able to see clips of them. I've been very impressed by our offense this year so far. Sam, I'll let you kind of run through your thoughts though first.
Yeah, I mean, thoughts throughout the preseason so far is I think it's glaring. It's Bupenza and Acosta are looking to be the source of our play, right? Our goals, our creative chances, etc. Does that concern me a little bit? Obviously. But last year we were Supporter Shield champs and Lucho carried us to that. Is he able to do it 2 seasons in a row? It seems like he's got a little bit more help now with Bupenza. To be honest, it seems like he's got more chemistry now with Bupenza, with almost, they're going to get a full season under their belt, maybe more chemistry than him and Brandon Vasquez ever had, right? So I'm interested to see how they take this into the Champions Cup and the rest of the regular season, into cold weather, actually. But yeah, I think as far as the defense goes, I know this past game was a little alarming, but I'm not too concerned with that as it is, like I said earlier, preseason. But as we get closer to Champions Cup, obviously us as fans would be more comfortable seeing less goals conceded, but I think it takes time. I think guys like Miles Murphy, Miazga, I think you got to figure out who's the dog in the back. Is it Miazga or is it Miles Robinson?
That's a fun one to see play out in the locker room. Honestly, really, I've been fairly impressed with how this preseason's gone compared to previous ones. Seems like, I mean, 2 wins and a draw. Usually it's the other way. It's 2 losses and a draw. I feel like Pat usually does a lot of experimentation within preseason, but I think this one, um, he's he's been at the helm. Is it 2 seasons now? Um, I think he's gaining confidence in his starters, so he knows who he can play and when. And really, the main concern that I have is just the first match being our tournament match with Champions Cup, and we'll obviously do uh, a match preview as the time comes. But really, I wish MLS didn't hinder themselves the way they do. Having MLS start their season with like a tournament like this, whereas all these other clubs and teams are starting or are having this tournament mid-season, or at the tail end of their season. So it really, I wish MLS would allow, I guess, some of these. Obviously, that would cause the off season to be even shorter, but it it doesn't help us.
Yeah, I think in a shortened preseason too, coming off of like how far we went, you have to turn it around like this quickly and, put all these new pieces together, and that's the biggest thing is the unknowns of how are we going to gel, like we've talked about, and who's going to play what positions, who's going to fill in those spots. But to integrate them, like you said, it helps you have a coaching staff that all stayed together. You look at how I thought Kenny Arena would have been taken by another team. I thought Dom Kinnear would have been taken by another team. Pat Noonan signed on, so he was here, but continuity in your staff, they know who they're working with in the returning people. How can we now, better implement all these new pieces to fit that kind of mold that they had been building in past seasons? That's what we missed early on in FC Cincinnati history. We had coaches that would come and go so frequently. The continuity is huge, the understanding. And I think Sam, you made a good point is even with loan pieces, where are they going to fit? Where is Orellano going to play? Hey, we're going to bring you in, as a winger, but maybe you play a little striker too. Maybe you fill in for Barreal. Like they have a good understanding with the players. And I think that's the difference from years in the past. One point I wanted to really put on is Bupenza, I think, has probably had the best MLS preseason of anyone across the board. Like, I mean, he scored so many goals, so that's promising. He's just got to keep it that way now. He's got to show up on time. He's got to hopefully he can travel to Jamaica. That's, I think, the big question right now is, is he going to be allowed? Guys, one thing that I forgot to mention in, this last preseason game is if you look at the lineup and you look how we start this game, I think that's really what you're going to start to see for Cavalier FC is who we play in this game. Obviously this last game, Barreal wasn't available, but does he put Barreal in right away at left wing back for this one and say, hey, you earned this spot from the last couple of seasons. You're the best, left wing back in the league. I know you've been gone, but I trust you. And I think, even though you've been in preseason for, maybe 2 weeks by the time we play our first game, I have that confidence in you. I really want to see if he plays Barreal in this game. That's what I am most, curious by. And then on the flip side, right wing back, do we now put Kubo in that spot? I'm really intrigued by that because honestly, no one else has really stepped up and grabbed that. Powell hasn't been, at least from what we've seen, been the starting right wing back. We had, I think, Foster at left wing, Halsey a little bit at right, but it seems like Kubo is their stopgap right now. And it seems like that's the way they're going at this moment.
Yeah, I think we're looking just for consistency across the board. Just coaching staff consistent, players consistent. Like let's get it in line.
Well, how Pat does, man. I mean, he's gonna figure it out, but now's the time that you try those things though. I mean, you figure out what's gonna work best so you can be consistent throughout the year.
True. Facts. We'll close it out here with the answers for our trivia of the week. Just to reiterate, it was how many players from the Czech Republic have played in the MLS, not including our new signing, Pavel Bucha. Ryan went with 3. Zach went with 5. The answer was 5.
Whoa.
We had,
Man.
and if I botch the names, I botched the names. First one off the board was Barak Dakel. He played for Philadelphia Union. Next you had Johnny Galick, who played for New England Revolution in the early 2000s, 1990s, which was really cool. He actually had like the most pedigree out of all of these guys, which was cool to see. Lubos Kubik, who played for the Chicago Fire, and then FC Dallas.
That's a sweet
And then
name.
you had Zdeněk Ondřesek, who played for FC Dallas as well. And then a guy who's currently with St. Louis City SC, Thomas Ostrak.
That's fascinating. I mean, what's the most recent player were you able to see like in the MLS?
Thomas Ostrak, who I just said was part
SLC.
of St. Louis.
Oh, St. Louis. Sorry.
Yeah.
didn't even register. So yeah, he would be the most recent
Yeah,
one.
he
All right,
would be the
cool.
most recent. Yeah.
I think do you guys see Bucha making it to the Czech national team?
I think he deserves it. I also did want to point out there were people that were signed, right? But like I said, keyword is played. So there
Okay.
was, I think, earlier this past season, there was a goalkeeper who got signed for the New England Revolution. He just never played in a game.
Mm.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, stay tuned to see what this young Czech guy's got. I think 25 is a prime age. Like he's just hitting like his peak. And the question, like we're saying, is like, is he gonna stay? You know, if he really builds up his pedigree, does he sign on with someone bigger? He's at least here for what, 2 years, possibly 3. So by then he's 28. He's kind of peaking at around that time. It'll be fascinating to see and how that kind of times out with, his trajectory and their national team too. So stay tuned for that. But we're pumped about the season to come. I think, guys, we got a little over a week until our first game. We'll do a deep dive, next week on Cavalier FC. We're going to do a big kind of overview of Champions Cup and what to expect for that. So stay tuned for that next week. Sam, Zach, any final thoughts here?
No, I'm itching. I'm itching. Let's get this new kit actually, which will be very soon. And then on to Champions Cup.
New kit. Gonna buy it this time. And then not at the end of the season when it's $30 like the orange one. That's on sale, by the way. I don't know if it still is, but
Most likely.
I'm excited for the Cavalier SC match though. Soccer to start.
Zach, are you going to travel down to the Jamaica for that game?
Ooh.
No, not after being this sick. I can't imagine getting sick again.
That's a good call, man. Well, rest up. We'll see you guys next week. Thanks again for listening.
Woo!